Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo. Today, July 29th, 2022. Woo! We've been really rolling with these Devos for a long time now. But it's super good fun to get in the Word together. And you could always check out the archives at my YouTube channel. Go to Bo Willette, just type that in YouTube, and you'll get to all the archives. You could check them out. You could review the ones that we've gone over. Again, devotion style kind of is more of a style of not so in depth, but it's really pulling out a lot of practical application from the scriptures that we can kind of look at on a day-to-day basis. And that's kind of what a devotional is about, right? It's just thinking through the day, thinking about, hey, where am I at today? What can I work on today? Those kind of things. Thinking about God, in the right way. That's super important in a Devo, and that's what we want to do, is kind of think about God correctly. Not God as we make him out to be, but God as he truly has revealed himself through the scriptures. And really through the nation of Israel, through the people of Israel. And that's what's so neat about going over the Bible, is you're going over all of the history of Israel. If you ever doubt the Bible, just pull out that map and look for a place called Israel. And if there's a place called Israel in the world, then guess what? We have to ask, how did that country get there? Well, that's what we're studying, right? That's what the Old Testament's all about. So, hey, I want to give just a shout out to everybody who's listening right now. Thank you so much for joining me, all my friends, to get in the Word together, right? And you guys all have good wisdom, wonderful comments, and wonderful prayer. Thank you so much, too, for lifting up my mama. Man, that is a big blessing. She certainly needs it. And thanks for some of your wisdom, too, on different things. That's really important. You guys some of you have gone through stuff very similar. And, it's good to hear about it and good to glean some of those lessons learned. So we're going to jump right into 1b. Again, that B is just the second part of the chapter. So whenever you see the B or the A, usually it's saying, hey, first part, second part, that kind of idea. So we're going to jump in, and we're going to be kind of in verse 27. And I'm going to kind of just read the rest of chapter 1, just so you get the flavor of what's going on in the narrative with the nation of Israel in now their promised land, the land of Canaan. And it says, but Manasseh, now remember, 12 tribes in Israel. Manasseh is one of them. But Manasseh did not drive out the people of Beth-shan, or Tanakh, or Dor, or Eblim, or Megiddo, Armageddon, is that Megiddo? And their surrounding settlements, for the Canaanites were determined to live in that land. When Israel became strong, they pressed the Canaanites into forced labor, but never drove them out completely. Nor did Ephraim drive out the Canaanites living in Gezer, but the Canaanites continued to live there among them. David, Goliath? Where did Goliath come from? Interesting, right? Well, Joshua's tribe. Remember Joshua from our last Devo? Well, Joshua, guess what? Joshua, even though he was a good leader, guess what? He wasn't a perfect leader. Ephraim did not drive out everybody. Interesting. First thing I get just from thinking about it, just in a simple reading of the text, knowing a little bit of the history, is that Joshua was a wonderful leader, but he's not as cool as our Joshua, right? Joshua, Jesus, remember, same name, right? The Jesus in the Old Testament from Ephraim, yeah, he did good, but guess what? They didn't drive out the Canaanites living in Gezer, or the Canaanites continued to live there among them. He didn't drive out everybody. But our Jesus is going to drive out all sin from us, all the enemy from us. Isn't that cool? He conquers death. Think of that. Jesus conquers all of our enemies, even the most greatest enemies that we face. He is there and has conquered them. Man, that's awesome. We got a killer Joshua. We got an awesome Joshua. And that's his name, Yahshua, right? God is salvation. Jesus. Boy, that blesses me. So here we see a little bit of a failure on the part of the OT Joshua, don't we? Ephraim does not drive out the people. And we'll see in King David's time, later on down the road, this will come right back up. So, hey, this is how we are in life, isn't it? We go in life, we make some good steps. Yeah, we make little steps here, little steps there. But boy, there's always those things that need to be driven out more and more. We are thankful. We have great hope in our Joshua, who's already given us the promise of eternal life, the forgiveness of sins, the cleansing, the sanctification, the washing and renewal of the Holy Spirit. I mean, these are promises that God's given us. There is a wonderful ideal in our Jesus. That's right. And it says, neither did Zebulun drive out the Canaanites living in Kidron or Naphtali, who remained among them, but they did subject them to forced labor. Nor did Asher drive out those living in Acco or Sidon or Hablab or Eslib or Heblah or Aphek or Rehob. And because of this, the people of Asher lived among the Canaanite inhabitants of the land. Okay, I tried my best to say those names. Pretty tough, right? I just don't speak the language very well. Those Old Testament languages. Neither did Naphtali drive out those living in Beth Shemesh or Beth Anath, but the Naphtalites too lived among the Canaanite inhabitants of the land, and those living in Beth Shemesh and Beth Anath became forced laborers for them. The Amorites confined the Danites to the hill country, not allowing them to come down into the plains. Ooh, wow. So the Danites were kind of stuck up on the hill, it says. And the Amorites were determined also to hold out in Mount Heres, Ajalon, and Shalbim. But when the power of the house of Joseph increased, they too were pressed into forced labor. The boundary of the Amorites from Scorpion Pass to Selah and beyond. So the reason why I read all that, I know it's like, man, that's a Devo, Bo. Yeah, that's a Devo, and the Devo is this. The tribes didn't take out all the people. They didn't dispossess everybody in the land. And now there becomes all this tension, right? Some people are at forced labor, right, of the Canaanites for people of Israel. Sometimes the people of Israel were really in this battle conflict constantly. It sounds like Dan really had to deal with the Amorites, and remember, study the Amorites, find out where the Amorites come from. You'll see that they're all kind of brothers down the road, cousins, if you will, down the road. It's kind of interesting how a lot of that happens. Not everybody, but sometimes you'll see that throughout the Bible. When we see these names of these tribes, hey, you might want to look at some of their history. Just look up their name on the internet, and you'll find a little bit of their past. And you'll find, wow, at one point they might have been really, they were like brothers, close, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's really interesting how we grow apart, and how these people have grown apart. But now they over the years and over so much idolatry and so much distortion of the true and living God, there's all this conflict. God has called the people to call them out and to reveal himself to them, to live amongst them. But God is holy. God demands a righteousness, and Israel is to hold fast to that righteousness. But they don't do it, right? They go into the land, but they don't take it, right? So it sounds, to me, that's so much like our lives in so many ways, just application wise, where, you go in to do something, you go into, you're gonna deal with your fear, you're gonna deal with your anxiety. Oh man, you're gonna deal with that bad habit that you have. You're finally gonna deal with it. You're finally gonna deal with that issue that keeps coming up in your life, right? But it's really difficult to dispossess, right? The enemy. It's just that enemy's always there. It's always that thorn in the flesh, right? Oh my gosh, it's always that hindrance, right? That thing that bothers you. Oh man, thank God for God's grace, right? His grace is sufficient. Oh man, take a breath. Yeah, we're saved by grace, right? Through faith. Oh man, not of works, lest anyone should boast. Oh man, so good. So chapter 2 says the angel of the Lord. Ooh, the angel of the Lord. That's a great one. Underline that one. We've seen the angel of the Lord before, right? The angel of the Lord's a special messenger for sure. It says the angel of the Lord went up from Gilgal to Bochum and said, I brought you up out of Egypt. Wow, the angel says, I brought you up out of Egypt and brought you into this land I swore to give you to your forefathers. I said I will never break my covenant with you. Whoa, this angel's speaking as though, yo, it's Yahweh in the flesh. It's interesting. There's some really highfalutin names for this, but you see a real pre-showing, if you will, of Yahshua, the Yahshua we know, right? God is salvation on the scene, speaking to the people. Wow, very powerful. He said, I will never break my covenant with you. Hey, isn't that cool to think of that this morning? Hey, God will never break his covenant with you. Man, I like that. You know, he is faithful. You know those passages in the New Testament? Yeah, 1 Thessalonians, 5:24, right? He will sanctify you completely, body, soul, and spirit. And he who calls you is faithful, right? That's right. How about Philippians 1:6, right? That one, it says, he who began the good work in you is faithful to complete it. He's faithful. Yeah. And there's another passage in the book of Timothy. I think it's 2:13, right? Even if we are faithless, he remains faithful. God will never break his covenant with you. And you shall not make a covenant with the people of this land, but you shall break down their altars. You shall have yet you have disobeyed me. Why have you done this? Now therefore I tell you that I will not drive them out before you. They will be thorns in your sides. Ooh, there it is, thorns in your sides. Where did Paul the Apostle get that idea of a thorn in the flesh, a thorn in the side? Where did he get that from? Well, he was a Jew. He was a Pharisee at one point in his life, meaning he was a pretty smart university scholar on the Bible. Well, he read the book of Judges. That's what he did. And he saw that, you know what? The enemy is going to be a thorn in your flesh, right? A thorn in the side. And it says, and their gods will be a snare to you. Man, you are going to have to deal with stuff. And Paul saw that and went, I have a thorn in my side too. A thorn in my flesh. And I'm asking God to deal with it. But God says, my grace is sufficient for you. For my strength is made perfect, complete, matured in weakness. Wow. That's tough for us human beings because we always want to be seen as what? Strong. Isn't that amazing? In our families, we want to be seen as strong. We always want to be seen as strong in the church when really I'm just weak. I'm just a frail, weak person. Just like you. You're just like me. And everybody's the same on the planet. No one's different. There's only one that's good, and that is God. That's what the Bible teaches. That's what Jesus said. There's no one good, only one, and that is God. Wow, that's some humble pie, to eat. So here, the angel of the Lord, chapter 2, very important passage, right? Chapter 2 of Judges shows this angel of the Lord speaking in first person. Hey, why have you disobeyed me? Why have you not listened to me, right? I brought you up out of Egypt. Wow, isn't that cool? I just find that so neat. It's a real cool picture of Jesus right here. Jesus in the flesh. Judges chapter 2. Very cool. So when the angel of the Lord had spoken these things to all the Israelites, the people wept aloud, and they called the place Bochum, and they offered sacrifices to the Lord. Okay, So they wept, they cried, they were bummed. But you know what? These people are going to be in your life, and there's no doubt things like that all the time in our life. There's things that we don't deal with, and they just remain in our life, and they become what? A thorn in our side. Ooh, help me, Lord, with those things, right? Oh, help me with those things. And there's a lot to think about with that, but it's so true, right? Man, sometimes the Bible just, gives you a nice, good, clean smack in the face and just says, getting that humbleness, right? And just kind of go, whoa, Bo, remember those things that you've allowed to stay in your life. Guess what? They're going to remain. They're going to just stay right there, man. They're going to keep right there. And they're going to be what? A thorn in your side. Hey, what are your thorns in the side? I'm sure you got some too. Why do I know that? Because you're a human being. And see, they were in covenant with God. Don't get it wrong. It's not like they weren't in covenant with God. They were in covenant with God. You're in covenant with God. I'm under the new covenant. But that doesn't mean we don't have some thorns in the flesh, It says, after Joshua had dismissed the Israelites, they went to take possession of the land, each to its own inheritance. And the people served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua and of the elders who outlived him and who had seen all the great things the Lord had done for Israel. So a little background, a little history there. Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110, and they buried him in the land of his inheritance at Timnath Heres in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gash. After the whole generation had been gathered to the fathers, another generation grew up who knew neither the Lord nor what had he done for Israel. Ooh, so sad. That's another underliner right there. They neither knew the Lord nor what he had done to Israel, right? Oh, a generation comes up and they don't even know God, right? It says, when the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, of course they did evil in the eyes of the Lord. They don't know the Lord, right? So if you don't know the Lord, you're going to do evil in the eyes of the Lord. That's just natural. That's your default position, by the way, right? Is to do evil in the eyes of the Lord, right? It's not, you could, if you don't know the Lord and you don't know any of what the Lord, his righteousness, of course we're going to go our own way. And so the new generation goes its own way. So maybe the new generation that doesn't know God, maybe that's because of us. Maybe because we're just not good teachers of the word. Maybe we haven't done a good job of that in raising up the next generation to understand the Bible, to understand, the worldview, the scriptural worldview. So yeah, maybe that's a little bit of a hit on us, right? To look at us. So instead of blaming today, looking at different people and saying, hey, why, it's their fault, it's this fault, it's their fault. Maybe I just got to look at me and just go, hey, am I working with the next generation? And it says they followed and worshiped various gods of the people around them. They provoked the Lord to anger. So man, this next generation's just going buck wild, man. They're worshiping the other gods, right? They provoked the Lord to anger because they forsook him and served Baal and Ashereth. They went to, intellect. They went to lust. They went to those things, right? Baal, the intellectual god. They went to, Ashereth, the sexuality, right? Hey, remember, there's nothing new under the sun, man. Nothing new under the sun. Anything that's going on today, any movements today in sexual attitudes and behaviors are not new. They are actually old. Very, very old. That's right. There's a reason why the world went monogamous and went heterosexual monogamy, right? There's a reason why it went that way and why that way is dominated over the last couple thousand years, right? Yeah, it's because it replaced an old way, right? And what we're just doing is we're going back to what? The old ways. That's right. We just keep going in circles, man. We're just chasing our tails. If you don't know your past, you're bound to what? Repeat it. Oh, so true. So they worship the intellectualism of the world. They're worshiping the greed of the world. Yeah, these kind of ideas. this kind of thought, the riches, the intellectualism. Yeah, these people it wasn't just this idea of a little idol in your house and but there was thoughts behind the idols, things that those idols represented, smarts, again, intellectualism, brightness, that kind of idea, those kind of things. And, you look at the past history of places and you go, man, they really were smart. They really knew things, Sometimes we tend to look at the people of history as kind of being a little dumb, right? But maybe they weren't so dumb, But, you look at Baal and you look at Ashereth and you kind of look at some of their histories, and you'll kind of see where the people tended to flow, where they tended to go, that kind of thing. Our culture, we have universities. People love the idea of knowledge and the idea of, those kind of things. People love the idea of, we all love the idea of, intellectual knowledge and lustful cravings for different things. It doesn't just have to be sexual things. It could be many things that we lust after. So you can see that these people my point is in the devotion is that they're maybe not so different from us, right? Maybe they're a lot like us. And so they go those directions, and it says, in his anger against Israel, the Lord handed them over to raiders who plundered them. Ooh, so sad. God hands them over. Kind of a sad thing, right? To be handed over. God gives you over to your stuff, and there it is. And you got to kind of deal with it. Whatever Israel went out to fight, the hand of the Lord was against them to defeat them, just as he had sworn to them. They were in great distress. Now remember, just so you know, remember in the book of Deuteronomy, Moses already gave Israel kind of these warnings, the big ones. Hey, if you obey God, this is going to happen. If you don't, God's going to pull back and he will hide himself. And that's what we have today, a hidden God, right? A God who has revealed himself in the Messiah, right? Jesus has come to reveal the Father. But that's it. That's the only revelation we have of God. It is Jesus, right? No one knows the Father except the Son. No one. That's what Jesus said, right? No one knows the Father except the Son, right? Right? The only people that know God are those to whom it has been revealed, it says. That's it. But no one knows the Father except the Son. Only to those who it has been revealed. Yeah, that's right. So it's pretty radical. God, that talk that Moses gave, that big sermon called Deuteronomy, man, really is powerful. Because here we start seeing it happening, where Israel is moving away from God, and the punishment was going to be God was going to step back, and they would be handed over to their own things, their own wishes, their own wants, their own desires. Man, God, don't give me what I desire or what I want today. Let me do what you want, not what I want. Then the Lord raised up judges who saved them out of the hands of these raiders. Whoa, guess what? It seems like, man, it's the end, right? But there's this measure of grace that comes in, and God continues to help. Woo, am I glad about that? Yet they would not listen to their judges, but prostituted themselves to serve other gods. Now we start seeing that word prostituted. They whored themselves out, right? They prostituted themselves to other gods and worshiped them. Unlike their fathers, they quickly turned from the way in which their fathers had walked, the way of obedience to the Lord's commands. Whenever the Lord raised up judges for them, he was with the judge and saved them out of the hands of their enemies, as long as the judge lived. So we get a summary of the book of Judges and kind of what's going to happen in the whole book right here. God's going to be merciful. That's what mercy is. Mercy is what you do not deserve, or what you do deserve, you don't get. Israel deserves to be under the curse. They have disobeyed, right? Moses' words have rung true. This is what happens if you disobey. God will hide himself from the people. He will distance himself. They will have to face their enemies on their own, and they will be defeated. They will, in a sense, no longer have the Lord's provision, his grace with them. And yet, even as that's happening, God continues to raise up people to pursue Israel. And that is powerful. I love that. God continues to pursue. Now, this happens all the way into the Old Testament until God brings his son into the world. I mean, it is gorgeous. And then we can enter into this wonderful covenant with Jesus, where our sins are fully removed. As far as the east is from the west, he has removed our sins from us. And, it's just gorgeous. But God is a pursuing God. And I just want to remember that today, that God pursues. Even when we get caught up in all of our stuff, all our intellectualism, all our different this, all of our different that, God's right there to deal with us and to help us and to come into our lives and again, kind of give us a hand, And it says, but when the judge died, the people returned to the ways even more corrupt than those of their fathers, following other gods and serving and worshiping them. They refused to give up their evil practices and stubborn ways. And maybe that's what we see in our culture today, is that as the generations go on, it just gets more corrupt and corrupt. Therefore, the Lord was very angry with Israel and said, because this nation has violated the covenant I have laid down for their forefathers, and has not listened to me, I will no longer drive out before them any of the nations Joshua left when he died. I will use them to test Israel. So these people will be in Israel's life now for a long time. And they will be used as a test for Israel to see whether they will keep the way of the Lord and walk in it as their forefathers did. So it's going to be all the Canaanites, all the tribes, they're all going to be like a testing. Hey, it's going to be in your life, but what are you going to do? And as a country, we've allowed a lot of things into the country, and it's become like a testing ground, hasn't it? What are we going to do? Yeah, a lot of parallels there. And says, I will use them to test Israel and see whether they will keep the way of the Lord and walk in it as their forefathers did. The Lord had allowed those nations to remain and did not drive them out at once by giving them into the hands of Joshua. Wow. Man, amazing chapter. So many cool things to think about. So many really neat applications for us, right? Hey, we're stoked at our Joshua. We're stoked at the covenant that's been made for us, right? We're thankful for the sacrifice, for the resurrection, for the ascension of Christ, that he lives forevermore to intercede for us. He has made us a kingdom of priests, a nation, a holy nation. But we find ourselves very much sometimes like the book of Judges, where we have things in our life that become thorns in the flesh that are around us. We have things in our life that become now a testing to see whether or not we're going to obey the Lord or not. But they're in our life. We've kept them there, right? Yeah, we see these things happening. We see in our country, in our world, just as things go, things get more eroded, We see ourselves going backwards, not forwards. We're not progressing. We're regressing. We're going back to the time of the judges, where each one's doing what they want to do, right? And they knew not the Lord. So, hey, we want to hold fast. We want to cling to, right, to our Joshua. So, very cool. A lot of good stuff to think about. And, study. Hopefully this is just kind of, devotions are meant to give us, thoughts for the day and then move us to even greater, study of the scriptures. And so I hope you guys have a great one. Man, a lot of good stuff for us to ponder today. Take care, okay? Have a great one. Bye-bye.